packing one of the most brilliant, biting, and, frankly, downright shocking pieces of economic satire ever written in the English language. Imagine you're presented with this perfectly structured, mathematically sound business pitch. It promises to solve poverty, boost the national economy, and create an entirely new culinary market. Sounds absolutely fantastic, right? Well, wait until you hear what the actual product is. Published in 1729 by Dr. Jonathan Swift, a modest proposal presents itself as a completely serious, highly bureaucratic solution to a devastating national crisis. Swift frames his essay basically as a public service announcement for preventing the children of poor people in Ireland from being a burden on their parents or country. I mean, it reads exactly like a white paper or policy brief written by an economist, or what Swift would have called a projector back in his day. But to understand the sheer force of this document, we really have to look at what prompted it in the first place. We need to first establish the dire, truly heartbreaking reality of Ireland at the time. Swift opens his essay by painting a really grim picture. He describes a kingdom just absolutely overrun by starving families and extreme poverty. Mothers are unable to work, and instead they're forced to beg on the streets for sustenance for their helpless infants. He notes how these children, having literally zero prospects, grow up to become thieves or just flee the country entirely. He tells his readers that everyone agrees this prodigious number of children is a very great additional grievance to the already deplorable state of the kingdom. So we're looking at a setting of total economic despair. Section 1. A shocking solution. The 1729 pitch. Okay, let's dive into this and look at the horrifying, quote-unquote, fair, cheap, and easy method our author proposes to fix the economy. With a completely deadpan delivery, Swift introduces his central, monstrous thesis. He claims a very knowing American acquaintance has assured him that a young, healthy child is a delicious, nourishing food. No way, right? He even offers culinary suggestions. He casually notes they do well in a fricassee or a ragout. He just pivots instantly from a genuine social tragedy to casually pitching the consumption of the infants of the poor. He treats these children not as human beings, but as this untapped new livestock resource. Section 2. The cold calculations. Demographics and yields. To make this appalling idea sound legitimate, Swift applies the cold, unfeeling language of mathematics to human lives. He calculates that out of a population of 1.5 million souls, there are about 120,000 children born to poor parents annually. And, like any good factory manager, he splits this inventory precisely. 20,000 are reserved for breeding stock. He even notes, with this chilling clinical detachment, that only 1/4 need to be males, which, by the way, is a ratio better than we allow for sheep or cattle. The remaining 100,000, well, they're designated as market commodities, to be offered for sale to persons of quality and fortune at exactly 1 year old. He goes as far as projecting the physical yield of the product. He estimates an infant starts at 12 pounds and, if tolerably nursed, increases to 28 pounds in a solar year. He then pitches this to landlords, suggesting that since they've already figuratively devoured most of the parents through crippling rent, well, they have the best title to the children. He goes on to note how a fore or hindquarter will make a reasonable dish for a family dining alone and will be very good boiled on the 4th day, especially in winter. It's the intense level of detail here that makes the satire so piercing. Now, the projected return on investment here is just staggering. He computes the overhead cost of nursing a beggar's child, including their rags, to be a mere 2 shillings a year. But a gentleman would gladly pay 10 shillings for the carcass of a good fat child. This leaves the mother with an 8 shilling neat profit. It turns her from an economic burden into a successful micro-entrepreneur, fit for work until she produces another child. It's essentially a flawless spreadsheet that completely covers up a moral atrocity. Section 3. The market benefits. A 6-point plan. You see, Swift doesn't just stop at the initial sale. He maps out the entire macroeconomic ripple effects of his supply chain. He rapidly fires off 6 distinct advantages to society, treating these horrific acts basically like a late-night infomercial. First, it lessens the Catholic population, which played heavily on the religious tensions of the day. Second, tenants finally have something valuable to see so they can actually pay their landlord's rent. Third, the national stock increases by £50,000. Fourth, parents avoid the maintenance charge of raising kids. Fifth, it brings a massive boom to the hospitality industry, as fine gentlemen flock to taverns with skilled cooks preparing this new delicacy. And sixth, and honestly, this is my personal favorite for its dark irony, it will supposedly improve family values. He argues men would become as fond of their pregnant wives as they are of their mares in full, and domestic abuse would plummet, because, you wouldn't want to damage such a valuable asset. And for the more thrifty consumer, because, as he admits, the times require thrift, he even outlines a byproduct market. Nothing goes to waste in a hyper-efficient economy. He suggests that the flayed skin can be artificially dressed to make luxury fashion items, admirable gloves for ladies, and summer boots for fine gentlemen. He's literally mapped out the entire life cycle of his product. Section 4. Swift's real message, the turn. So you've got to ask yourself, why would a respected intellectual and clergyman write something so intentionally grotesque? What was Swift actually proposing? Well, toward the end of the text, Swift drops the satirical facade just enough to expose his true demands. He says, "Let no man talk to me of other expedients," and then he proceeds to list a series of ideas that he doesn't want to hear about. But by listing them, he's actually telling us exactly what needs to be done. And this brilliantly illustrates the actual, deeply moral economic reforms Swift had been desperately advocating for years to save Ireland. He had tried telling the government to tax absentee landlords who drained money from the country. He pushed for buying local Irish goods to stimulate their own economy instead of importing foreign luxuries. He begged for a cure to the vanity and idleness of the upper classes. He demanded landlords show just one degree of mercy towards their struggling tenants. These are entirely reasonable, humane proposals. The entire essay, as we realize here, is born out of intense, boiling frustration. He had offered these vain, idle, visionary thoughts for years, but the ruling class absolutely refused to listen to basic human decency. So he threw his hands up. If the rich are going to economically devour the poor anyway, he reasoned, why not just pitch them a literal version of what they are already doing figuratively? He resorts to pitching baby eating because reason, compassion, and basic logic had completely failed. Yep, maintaining the joke to the very bitter end. Swift closes the essay by returning to his bureaucratic persona. He signs off with this cold assurance that his motives are pure and entirely for the public good because he can't personally profit from the slaughter. His youngest child is 9 years old, well past the prime selling age of 1 year, obviously, and his wife is past childbearing. It's the ultimate conflict of interest disclosure to wrap up a perfectly crafted, maddening proposal. As we wrap up this explainer, Swift's masterpiece really forces us to look in the mirror. It's super easy to laugh at the shock value of 1729, but it challenges us to reflect on our present day. How often do we still see modern bureaucratic language, charts, and financial terms used to mask genuine human suffering? When we prioritize efficiency and profit over basic human dignity, we really aren't that far removed from the cold logic of Swift's projector. So as you look at economic policies today, I want to leave you with this question. Who is really being